Friends, the topic of this podcast is exiting the Chakravyuh. This morning, we saw a prominent business leader use the word Chakravyuh to describe the situation in which our economy is in. We have landed ourselves in a position where we stopped a lot of economic activity, in fact, all of it. And we have been trying to find ways in which we can contain the spread of a deadly virus. We find that after battling this for almost 45 days, we now find that the virus has definitely been a threat, but not something that takes too many lives. Yet, we still struggle as to how we are going to confidently embark on the road to normalcy. Corporate India clearly is not in good shape. In fact, the best of companies are in bad shape. The indebtedness of Indian corporates has been a never-ending saga. Businesses have been taking on debt over the last decade for which they haven't really created incremental profit-creating assets. So they have basically added assets in different sectors, in different industries, which have not contributed to profits. So the pressure has always been high on the performing sectors or the performing parts of their company. We so relied on one business to take care of the problems of several other businesses. Now this game has been severely tested by the COVID crisis. Today, the best performing business has turned into a liability. And this trend applies to several large corporations. Now, when your best performing business becomes a liability, then you have no option but to somehow raise capital. And why do you need this capital? Because you're going to have multiple businesses that are going to struggle, and there is going to be a gestation before which one of these struggling businesses becomes a winner. This story probably typifies the tale of the best of Indian corporations. In this situation, we are trying to raise equity. So you are having corporations selling their own equity to the public or to large investors, promoters of these companies selling their shares in the corporation to the public so that they can invest it elsewhere and lighten themselves in the other place. And you are having equity dilution being done with the express purpose of borrowing loans. Normally, if somebody says that they are going to raise capital in a company only to repay loans, that is a non-marketable idea. But somehow, today, Indian corporations are finding ways and means to even market that idea. So, we are seeing companies smartly sell their stocks to multiple entities instead of trying to sell it to a single entity. So you had stocks coming out of multinational companies into the hands of investors. So business owners are selling their stocks and exiting companies. And you're seeing that in the case of the GSK, selling stocks in HUL to take out the money that it had originally invested in its Horlicks business, which got acquired by HUL. You also have the other instance of Reliance Industries trying to raise money in Jio Platforms from multiple entities. This clearly indicates that today you don't have business investors in this country. You only have investors who are interested in taking economic interest, which they would later on pass on to other people. Probably the idea is that buy these shares now and sell it back to the Indian public. Whatever it may be, this does not give us comfort with respect to the position of the Indian companies. And these are the best of companies. If you look at companies further down the hierarchy of Indian businesses, the situation is quite unmentionable. Many of these companies will have to raise capital. In fact, if you ask how many companies want to raise capital, it would be like asking a classroom, how many of you want to go on a free picnic? Everyone will put their hands up. And that would be the mood of their Indian corporate. But I doubt if everybody is going to be able to raise money. The ones off the block first are going to be the lucky ones. Sadly, the money that's being raised is not going for any productive purpose. It's only going to repay loans, which means that they're not going to create any new jobs or stuff like that, which means that the government finds itself in an unenviable position as it tries to come out of COVID. So coming out of this Chakravyuh would mean that you bring in newer investments from newer players from outside India who will come and set up those industries, set up projects, get into services and create jobs. Now, this would mean that the government must facilitate and enable rather than dole. So what government is going to give corporations to come out of this crisis would be support, which it gives the large companies, financial support, which is going to give the small companies, and ecosystem support, which is going to give the new players who are going to come into the country. So there are three kinds of things that need to be done. Any one thing would not be enough. And the government has its hands full as it's still looking at how it will support the weaker sections of society with food and safety and healthcare. But that can't be the priority for too long. And in the coming weeks, the economy is going to once again try to restart itself, take more and more activity back towards the path of normalcy. And in that process, the government is going to take a lot more risks than it took in these 45 days. Industry would also need to share those risks. Each and every one of us need to understand that we are also a part of this risk-taking, not only as investors, but also as employees, as entrepreneurs, as other stakeholders in whatever way we are involved. We would also need to march along with all fellow stakeholders on this path to regain productivity. This is not going to be easy. It's going to be one of the most challenging phases in our economic history. And we still will need to do a lot more than we are willing to or we put in. So whatever we do is still going to be inadequate, which means that incrementally we need to keep on trying and doing things to bring ourselves back to where we were before this crisis. Coming out of this Chakravyuh is going to be the challenge of our lifetime. It is going to be what companies have never done before, and it is going to be a ride which is going to be very bumpy and prone to missteps. So let us understand that clearly when we set our expectations from our investments in the immediate future. This is not going to be easy, but those companies, investors and other stakeholders who produce more and put in more efforts to bring their ventures back to good shape are going to be big winners. So the gap between the winners and the losers in this Chakravyuh is going to be very wide, and those who make inadequate efforts to get out of this Chakravyuh may in fact see their businesses fail. So as investors, it's going to be one of the toughest phases of our lives. So let us understand that and set our expectations as we go along this journey and fine-tune how we want to invest in the post-COVID world. Thank you very much. Do subscribe to our channel and keep watching my podcast. Thank you very much.